But let's take you back to this discussion around the reaction to the opening of Parliament address delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Once again, let's welcome Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town and President of the South African Council of Churches. That's Bishop Thabo Makgoba, who's with us once again via our video link. And apologies for what took place earlier, Bishop. We just couldn't make out what you're saying. I'm hoping some of those gremlins have now made way for us to have this discussion. And we're still speaking about those scenarios that the President made mention of yesterday and, you know, the extent to which this will resonate with you and the sector.
Yes, thank you so much, Ayanda. I was saying, indeed, the President hits the right note yesterday, and what he said will resonate with the faith-based community. I mean, he really started by referencing the aspiration and the courage and the hope of the first administration, so to speak, using that time and Madiba's magic as a lodestar. We need that at the moment, and as people of faith, some of those values really touched our hearts. I mean, there was a sense of hope and confidence with which, and humility with which he spoke. And as the faith community, the priorities that he mentioned are very critical, and we don't need more really dialogue. We live, we move, and we smell, we touch the poverty in the municipality. And I was so glad, and a number of clerics that I spoke to before coming to you thought the priorities of poverty, inclusive economy, and then fixing those at the municipality level was very important, because these are some of the things that have been stocking our land and keeping us awake at night. I was in Tlabine, outside Makgoba's Kloof, Limpopo, was delighted to see that the tar road is being fixed. But I was also in the Eastern Cape, in Makhanda, and the whole town is falling apart. So it is important really to fix the local infrastructure and to talk about how that can be done, not only by politicians, but by business people, by the faith community, and by all the people that will be impacted by that Operation Vulindlela. So as a faith community, I want to say we are really very supportive and of what he said. And we believe that local economic development is very key. It is very key to stabilize the water supply. It is very key to fix those potholes. It is very key to build those school toilets so that the school infrastructure doesn't kill our children. It is important to reduce crime and to improve the quality of the people at a local level. So I mean, that's what I want to say, Ayanda. But what's going to be important is to move. The other important thing is that the critical skills that we need. It's going to be very important to look at our policies in terms of accepting those that come from outside that bring these skills to improve South Africa. But what's going to be important is the timetable over 5 years. We will need to hold the government of national unity accountable in terms of the timetable. It can't just be talk and talk and talk. And we can't go back to the past 30 years where we were so problem-centered. We need to be solution-driven. So that's my reflection. Sure.
Really heartwarming to hear the amount of support really that you have for the president. But I wonder if I can push you slightly, Archbishop. You know, yes. South Africa is an interesting kind of sociological space to study, you know. Yeah. Legally speaking, we are a secular state, but there are millions of people who belong to some kind of religion in the country. And so the work that you do as a sector cannot be overstated. In the Christian context, a Jesus Christ, for example, was an incredibly radical political figure who often challenged the power of the day. I mean, this was a man, we're told, who was, flipping tables in churches and calling leaders hypocrites at some stage, all because of driving this idea of what justice looks like in the society that he walked in. So I wonder, with that in mind, what kind of, input you reckon the church can make today, given how long-standing some of our issues have been: poverty, inequality, and of course, what we see in the form of unemployment in this country. And the president, yes, made mention of this, but many people say we're simply not moving the dial insofar as solving these problems. So where does the church step in?
I think the church, as I said, when I started, we are in these local municipalities. We taste, we smell, we touch, in some instances we eat, that litany of the ills that God's people experience. But the church cannot look at those in the likeness of Jesus Christ with the eye and the lens of defeat, with the eyes and lens of it cannot be done. The church has to use the theological lenses of hope and confidence that we've been through exile experience, so to speak, in terms of colonialism, apartheid, and we went into the promised land in terms of political arrangement over the last 30 years. But the political arrangement didn't fully bring God's liberation and God's economy that includes all God's people. And we're saying the message is not the action in terms of what the president has said. The message is a lodestar that says, South Africans, I'm inviting you to join the political formations as civic society and as churches to bring that radical change that Jesus Christ effected. Because that economy where he turned the tables ups and down was the temple economy that exploited those that did not have those and amount to purchase what was needed for sacrifice. Now we're saying we will continue to hold this government of national unity to account, but we won't just be on the sideline like referees. We will also say to some of our parishioners that are in this government of national unity in various political formations, you can't be a good Christian on Sunday and receive communion, and when you go to Parliament, you are something else. When you have to do business dealings, you do them under the table. No, so that is incongruent, and it is not according to the will of God. Now, the church in some places has got land, we've got schools, we used to have health facilities. We will say, how do we continue to make our places where people can come and be vaccinated for TB? I mean, we've been engaged in AIDS and HIV. I'm going to the UN conference in Munich to speak on AIDS and HIV. It is still lacerating God's people. So the whole issue then of health and the privatization of health is very important. We will be encouraging people in the government of national unity to find a common narrative so that national health become possible for all instead of them fighting, but national health can be rolled out, particularly to those that are the poorest of the poor.
Right. There was real hopes that the president's address yesterday would have injected a new kind of enthusiasm, let's call it, in the GNU and by extension to the country. And we all know that, the only way we're going to see through a lot of his objectives is if we have honest, noble people who just get on with the work. And I think you've alluded to that in some respects. And I'm only preluding my question with that because there's a sense that there's a real moral decay in the country. And the question, I suppose, becomes how you reckon we could start finally turning the tide. Because at least in my mind, you cannot have a thriving, successful country without speaking about the principles upon which that success is built.
No, that's true, Ayanda. That's why I really liked where you started with that Indlula scenario. It is not all doom and gloom. I mean, there are people that are debilitatingly corrupt and habana letswalo ka Sesotho, so there's no conscience. And those, perhaps, as I've said previously, and particularly those appointed by the Zondo Commission, need to be wearing orange overall. But there are those in government, in churches, in business that are really trying very hard to fix the local infrastructure. Those that know that corruption doesn't pay, but corruption steals from the poor. So it's going to be very important that we have opportunities like this with you, Ayanda, to say to them, hey, South Africans are watching you, but also to remind the general populace in the local municipalities and everywhere to say, please, you have hands, you have feet, you have mouths, you have agency. Could we go back to when I lived in Alex? It was a scholar, but we used to have a gentleman that came and we will clean all the newspapers from the street. So it shouldn't be about government and business, but we in the churches need to continue to model that we can clean our places. I mean, for example, the prison started with the whole issue of fires and the whole issues of floods here in Cape Town. If we were to motivate some of the people to look at environmental justice, but also to participate in cleaning our dams and our rivers. So South Africa won't be the construction site only where the construction mafia may stand to benefit and because they are corrupt, but it will also be a place where the ordinary people will pick up the plastic, will pick up the rubble, and then we move forward and create South Africa that works, South Africa that where everybody cares and morality and ethics becomes at the top.
And we certainly hope we all build that South Africa. It sounds like one that we'll all benefit from. Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, as always, great speaking to you, sir. Thanks very much indeed for making time to speak to us.